Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. This is the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show, and today we're going over law number 12, the law of empowerment. Appreciate everybody joining us. Hope everybody is doing well. What is going on? Bringing on some friends here. When you first join us, if you can tell us where you're coming in from, that would help us out a lot. Appreciate that. Christine is watching. What's happening? How are things? South Dakota. It's a state I've driven through, but I don't think I've ever stayed in South Dakota. I think I've had a team there, though. So that's awesome. If you guys didn't already hear, we're going to go over law number 12 today, the law of empowerment, being able to help out your team. Bess is joining us. Denise is here. Welcome. Adding. Hello.
Hey, welcome everybody to this show, MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. As Jeff said, law of empowerment, because only a secure leader can give away power to others. So this is going to be a very interesting subject today. We are Jeffrey David Gamble of My Leadership Network, also a certified John Maxwell trainer, and Bess McCarty of MLM Millionaire Club School for Network Marketers, also shrink of MLM. We love to help people grow, to equip, educate, and empower entrepreneurs and create independent servant leaders. If y'all are watching the replay, we'd love if you type that in, and love to hear where you're from. And thank you so much to the people who've been sharing this live with other groups that they know. We've been getting great responses and many views, and we're so happy that this information can get out and reach other people. So I'll let Jeff begin.
Okay, guys, what we're going to do is jump into this, the law of empowerment. Again, thank you for all the shares, likes, comments, and sending this to other people who need the information. Sam's with us. What's happening? So here we go. The law of empowerment. It says great leaders gain authority by giving it away to others, putting people in a position where they have the ability to lead. Only secure leaders give their power to others. So you have to get to a certain point where and you have the ability to actually transfer this power to somebody else. Jeff Johnson's with us. What's happening? Typically, this happens very early on inside of direct sales, and we have the ability to do it. How do we do it? We do it through the ability to give away our testimonial. That's one of the first ways that I've seen in direct sales or in MLM, you have the ability to actually affect people is doing your third party or being third party and actually having a testimonial that actually is good and moves people. And here's the thing, you can have absolutely zero results so far inside of direct sales, and you have the ability to affect people with your testimonial. It can be what you see, what you feel, things that are coming, your name, where you're at, where you're from, what your background is, and then what you see, what you like, or what you love about your company, your product, or the overall opportunity. Certain people, have a background where they've never been able to see another way. I'm just going to make one up. Hey, my name's, James from Vermont. And, my background is a teacher. And the reason I love, network marketing, direct sales is in teaching. Most people work until they're 150 years old and then they try to retire. In this case, this is the first thing that I've seen where I actually have the ability to be able to walk away early because so many people before me have done it. Again, I could be brand new. Today, I could have started. That testimonial would hit a certain group of people. So being able to sculpt testimonials is one of the first ways you're able to actually empower other people where they can actually give that away and help others. Again, when you use third party, you always want to be very, very careful in using third party because you want to, use the right third party. I've seen this done, obviously, in a negative way, where somebody isn't prepared, somebody isn't ready. They just throw anybody on the phone because it's not them, and they have no idea what they're talking, and they actually talk the person out of it, which is not what we're trying to do. So it says, great things can happen when you don't care who gets the credit, Mark Twain. Leading others to the law of empowerment. There are three main barriers to empowerment. Number one is desire. Desire. This is kind of like you don't want to give away your power, or you don't want to give away your authority, or you don't want to give away the credit, simply because it has to do with job security. You're like trying to not have somebody else come up. This is the exact opposite what you want to do inside of direct sales and network marketing. Now, obviously, the 21 laws of leadership obviously were written mostly in an environment of work, in an environment of a job. You can tell by the wording that John uses. The wording that John uses has a lot to do with jobs. He even actually uses desire for job security. That's one of the reasons people don't give it away, and don't want to give it away. Second, resistance to change. Now that affects everybody. Well, I don't want to change who the speaker is. I don't want to change who the third party. I don't want to change the testimonials that we already have worked out. Some people are in a situation where they just don't like the changes that are happening. But inside of direct sales, you want it to change. You always want it to be a new person. I mean, if every single week you have a new testimonial come up, that would be amazing. But what you'll find inside of most direct sales companies, especially the legacy companies, it's the same people giving the same speech over and over and over again. That's a group that's not growing. You want it to be new people. You want it to be new testimonials. Number three, lack of self-worth. Lack of self-worth. If you don't feel worthy, you don't feel like giving anything away. So lack of self-worth, that'll really put you in a situation where it's very difficult to be able to use the law of empowerment, because you have to give something away. And when you don't feel like you have anything, it's very hard to give something away you don't have. Living the law of empowerment. It says, find strong leaders to empower. Find people who really want it. I was listening to one of the giants of the industry the other day, and he's like, in the beginning, I'd recruit anybody. He goes, if they were breathing and could fog a mirror, if they could sign up, if they had the money to sign up, I would sign them up. He's like, that wasn't really bright business plan, but in the beginning, I was just trying to figure it out and get good. He's like, now you're on a waiting list. I was like, wow, that would be a great position to be in, is have a waiting list. He's like, I might not be able to get back to him for a couple weeks, maybe even a month or so. I was like, man, that is a different way to build, but a good way to build. The main ingredient for empowering is belief. A leadership saying, I believe in you. I believe you're the person who's going to take over. There was a gentleman that came onto my team kind of out of nowhere. He actually had moved to Indiana from New York. A horrible, horrible situation. His cousin had been shot right in front of him. They were involved in street pharmaceutical sales. That's an easy way to put it. He was involved in street pharmaceutical sales. He was an AB guy. If you don't know what that means, don't look it up. It's not worth knowing. But he was an AB guy. His cousin got shot on the steps right in front of him. And then they came up to him, actually put the gun to his head. And the guy's like, no, 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 that's the wrong guy. And they walked off. And he's like, you know what? I think it's time to move. So he literally got in his car with no plan at all and drove a couple hundred miles. And he's like, Indiana seems like a safer place. So he just stopped in Indianapolis. Funny enough, Indianapolis is like horrible now. But compared to what New York was a decade ago, it's better. This gentleman stopped. Basically, no idea, got a hotel, just started living life. I mean, you talk about, complete change. Starts living life, moves out here, ends up running into a friend of mine at a movie theater, trying to get a job just to do something to make, enough money to eat. He has money from, previous activities, but he just like trying to get a job and live a normal life. So, getting out of a life of, street pharmaceutical sales to, living a normal life is pretty interesting. Somehow he runs into my friend in a movie theater. He ends up coming to our event. All of a sudden, he's sitting on the back row, and my mom sits next to him. And he's listening, and he's just kind of shaking his head, because I'm actually the speaker. He's just shaking his head. I guess he leans over to my mom, and he's like, is this even real? And, of course, he's got the bandana down to here. He's got the hat backwards, long hair. He was involved in some fun things. So my mom ends up saying, yeah, my son used to have long hair. I do now. My son used to have long hair. My son used to, be in a kind of a bad situation. My mom didn't know this guy for anything. Anyway, I get introduced to him at the very end. We start talking. He comes onto the team. Eventually, I mean, it was weeks and weeks, maybe even a month later, he finally starts telling me a story because he was really vague. And I could just tell he didn't want to divulge like where he was from and what he was doing here. Eventually, he gets involved. He goes back to New York just with the dream. I mean, that's it. He just had the dream. He's like, look, I found a way. There is another way out. All he wanted to do was show other people. One of the main people we wanted to show was his brother. And the reason he wanted to show his brother is he could see that his brother was following in the same footsteps he was. You know, and he's like, I don't want my brother ending up in a situation like my cousin being shot right in front of me. I don't want, you know, other people following this route. So he went back to tell everybody, hey, there's a way out. I met a guy. Eventually his brother comes on board. Well, when I first meet his brother, just in a few conversations, his brother was a senior in high school when I met him. Got signed up. He was already 18. Got signed up in the business, and we start talking about, you know, life and what's going on. He's like, look, I'm looking to go to college. I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, all you need to do is focus on, he's like, I'm like, right now you might not have the relationships. You might not have the car. You might not have all the skills. So, but right now you need to you need to focus on one thing and one thing only, the personal development. I said, if you do personal development every single day, this will eventually click over for you. You know, I kept in touch with his with his older brother, who originally came out to Indiana, who eventually stayed off and out of that entire world, you know, gave up that entire life, and started, you know, working out and coaching people on fitness. His other brother, I identified right away. I said, this kid has more leadership ability, natural leadership ability, than most of the people I've met. He went on to not only build that company, but jumped into another company, got to the top 200 by the time he was like 19, jumped to another company, did really well. And now today, I mean, the last picture I saw, he was riding around in a Rolls Royce that he had rented while he was in London speaking at a motivational conference. He's now launched his own clothing line. He's now a speaker and a trainer. He spoke with Gary Vaynerchuk, if you know that name, at an event overseas. His girlfriend now, because of some of these, you know, relationships and things, she just hit, I think she just hit 1 million views on YouTube. She was one of the TED Talk speakers. This is his current girlfriend. I mean, life-changing. But 6 years ago, where was he? 6, 7 years ago, he was just figuring things out. But I'm like, I saw it right away because I've seen when you sit down with 10,000 people, you're just able to identify certain qualities inside of people. I'm like, you have all the qualities if you focus on this. So every single day, this kid checked in with me, you know, and every single day he picked up the phone and he called me. He was like, this is what I read. What does this mean? This is what I read. What does this mean? And we went through Robert Kiyosaki, and we went through, you know, John Maxwell, and he went book by book by book. He ended up leaving school. He now earns, I think in 1 month, he out-earned most of his teachers. You have to believe in people, and you have to see this early. And I kept telling him, I'm like, look, regardless of how young you are, people aren't going to respect your age. They're going to respect what you know and what you do. So if you're out doing it and you know what you're talking about, people will see it. People will figure it out. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your background is. And I'm like, your brother risked everything to come out and meet. That's not an accident. You know, it wasn't an accident the way that this all transpired. You can look this kid up, Anthony Minaya. Anthony Minaya. I'll put a link underneath. Very cool guy. I'll have him come on and talk on one of these shows sometime. Fun guy to hang out with. So back to the law of empowerment. Learn it, live it, and then lead it. You know, how do you learn this law of empowerment? Well, you kind of have to figure out the first step to learning it is just your testimonial inside of direct sales. Most of us all are in MLM direct sales, so you'll be able to use it there. Then you turn around and teach others how to do it. If somebody's not good at third party, sit down and sculpt it with them. If you're not good at it, find somebody like Bess, find somebody like me, call, you know, your apply, and figure out a way to make it good. It doesn't matter if you're brand new. You can be brand new, have an amazing testimonial, and empower others with your story. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to turn this back over to Bess, get her thoughts on the law of empowerment, and then we'll hit this next section.
Thank you, Jeff. I have a few thoughts to share. First, I wanted to ask you real quick, what did you see in the young fellow? What you said, oh, he's you know, has the qualities of leadership. I was wondering how, you know, so that our listeners can understand what to look for. What qualities did you see in him specifically?
He had drive. It was a dream. That was more than anything. You know, he was just willing to go out of his way. I could see that he was hungry for the knowledge. He was like, look, I see what everybody else is doing and I don't like the direction they're going. I see what everybody else has and I don't like what they have. I see the life that everybody else has and I don't like it. So I just saw internally that he was searching and seeking for something more, but one better, he wasn't complaining about it. He wasn't online posting how horrible his job is and how he got screwed in life and, you know, how his parents didn't do this and, you know, all the junk stories we all give ourselves are the reason why we can't make it. What he was doing is he was like, okay, I listened to this. How do I do that? I read this. How do I do that? It was always internal, like trying to fix the things that were in him. It was a lot of personal focus rather than external reasons. And it was just drive. I mean, he was willing to, if there was a suggestion, he wouldn't just go out and listen to that. He would listen to 3 or 4 others. I was like, well, can I get you something? And he was like, funny. He's like, why do I keep asking you questions and you never, like, he finally figured it out. He's like, you never answer the question. You always lead me to a John Maxwell, or you always lead me. I said, well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to equip you with where to get the knowledge. So if anything happens to me, you don't have to stop learning. You don't have to stop getting answers. You can just keep going and finding answers. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. He goes, I thought you were kind of like snubbing me, like you wouldn't tell me, but you tell everybody else. I'm like, no, you're just willing to learn at an accelerated rate. So that's why I can just say, go do this. I'm trying to get you to not count on me. And he's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Wow. I just love that. That story just demonstrates perfectly what a leader is. You know, a leader does not want people to be dependent on them. They want them to stand on their own feet as soon as they can, and of course, be their own leader and develop other leaders. So we want to replicate and duplicate. You know, leaders, good leaders develop leaders. So Jeff turned the spotlight, you know, off him and as a source of information for that person, said, you are the source inside, and you can find other sources out here. And yeah, I'm one of the sources. I'm one of the helpers and supporters. But yeah, to empower the person to find their own and recognize their own value. Thank you for that great story. So leaders often see the best in other people until they can see it themselves. That's important. A lot of times people cannot see it in themselves, their own value and their worth and their potential. So a good coach, leader, trainer, teacher, parent, it's all kind of running together for me. That basically we're teachers, right? Empowerers, and helping people to find this within themselves. And the people that I have interviewed and coached in network marketing invariably say, you know, that the top earners and all, they say, yes, it's wonderful to be on this stage, but you know, it's even more thrilling is when your people get on the stage. That is a better feeling, you know, so don't stop. We don't want to stop with our own success. It's even more fun, you know, go for the gold, you know, go for the ultimate, have other people. And in the book, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, he always tells these great stories. I'll put the link to that free book in the comments so y'all can follow along. But today's topic of the law of empowerment, he tells a story about Henry Ford, you know, Ford cars. And he had this great vision. What the gift they gave to the world was initially, you know, to have a car so everybody could give up their horses and have a car that would be made of the best materials, but yet something everybody could afford. What a great gift to the world. So he created the Model T. And guess what? When I was a little girl, our family actually had one of those. We had a Model T, Ford's first car. So, but his downfall happened, and it really hampered the company when he didn't want anybody to improve it. His men came to him with an improved design and he tore it up, and because he was kind of jealous of, he didn't want anybody to improve that or anybody to change what he had done. And so his company began to shrink and lose money. He would tear down his leaders, including his son, who was leading the company at that time. He'd bring his leaders in and pit them against each other and have one criticize the other. And that eventually led to the company losing like $1 million a day in those times. It was a lot of money, until his son passed away. His grandson came in, brought in new leaders, and was able to turn it around. But where Ford fell down was that he was worried about his own place in the company. In other words, he was insecure and kind of jealous, I think, of having anybody else be in control or power. And Theodore Roosevelt says, the best executive is one who has a sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and the self-restraint enough to keep from meddling in them while they do it. So empowering and trusting people. And I know Jeff has more to share with us about that.
So when you're leading others to the law of empowerment, if you believe you have the right person to empower, you have to actually believe in that person that they can pull it off. And here's the thing, you're going to have to be also willing that they're not going to get it maybe right off the bat. It's really hard when you find somebody that has all of the want, but they don't necessarily have the desire to do it. Meaning they have all the skills, you know, and there's a couple people on my team that had all the skill in the world. I was like, you can affect more people, but they had no desire to climb up. They just were perfectly happy affecting the people they were affecting, and it was personality driven. Their main goal was just to have fun. It wasn't to build anything significant or be anything significant, so they settled for less. Where certain people didn't have any of the skills, but they had the desire to grow and develop, and because of that, they were able to climb very quickly. And you know, one of them, you know, being Anthony, just able to move bigger and bigger and bigger and better steps. So it just really depends on the person that you're dealing with, and how are you able to identify this? Once you're out in front of thousands of people, this stuff starts clicking off. You know, I guess one of my traits, you know, out of the 21 laws is my ability to identify. You know, maybe it's intuition. I've been able to identify. There was another guy out in California, young kid on the team. Our leadership was kind of, one of the leaders that I worked with was always upset because this kid would just screw around. And I said, you know, that kid has more natural talent than both of us combined. And if he ever figures it out, he's going to pass both of us in 30 seconds. And my leader disagreed with me until 2 years later when he broke out and took off and literally destroyed both of us in building, and went on to be I think it was a $480,000 earner in a company. Ended up leaving that company, starting his own lead generation company, and currently lives in Texas now. Got married just before 30, flew everybody down to Cancun to have the party. I mean, it was an amazing, amazing wedding on a beach. But again, I met him when he was 20. Another person on the team, female, she was 18 when she signed up. And again, more natural talent than most people, her awareness of what was going on. She was actually able to get started inside of direct sales. I met her. My upline support team had to literally have like a 2-hour conversation with her parents to get her to be able to come to the event, bring her best friend, so that way she had a guardian and somebody with her the whole time who was a year older than her. Just picked up what was going on, was executive in the company at 20, ended up bringing a ton of people out to Las Vegas. Now get this, she wasn't able to do all the things. She wasn't able to rent a car. She wasn't able to do all these different things that it took, but she found other people and organized it. She had tons of adults on her team at 20 years old and was an executive standing in front of 800, 900 people giving instructions on how to do and what to do. As a kid, had more power, had more natural power than some people do at 40 and 50 and 60. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing, but it was because they jumped into personal development early. And here's what they did. They took a time frame of 5 years and smashed it into 6 months to a year. They were just able to go through the information so much quicker than the average person. They wanted it so much more. Today, that person runs a business with 6-8 employees, is living the life out in San Diego, California. But being able to meet them really young and see them when they're just starting to develop, you just have to be able to identify it. How do you identify it? Go out there and do 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 sit downs, one-on-one, understanding what's going on, and do it quickly. So belief will allow you to lift up, give freely, and support those that you're bringing on your team. If you find them but don't know what to do with them, if you haven't figured it out yourself, it's very hard to give it away. I had good mentors. I had great mentors. I had people who, you know, who pushed the personal development on me, and they saw the drive, but I didn't have any of the skill and everything. They're like, just focus on this. Here's what to focus on. So that's why I think Jim Rohn says work harder on yourself than you do on anything else. Because if you work harder on yourself than you do anything else, eventually you'll learn the lesson. But here's something that the two that I met in San Diego and the one that I met in New York, here's something they had, is they had internal drive. And that was the main thing that I saw. I said, look, I can teach you how to contact somebody. I can teach you how to invite. I can teach you how to present. I can teach you how to follow up. I can teach you how to get to the events. I can teach you how to close. I can teach you how to do third party. But if you don't have the drive, if you're at home at 5 o'clock and tired and lazy and eating bad and doing these things, then you're not ever going to be able to, you can be perfect at all the skill, but if you don't get in front of enough people, they just had the drive to get in front of enough people. And that was really the determining factor, is they had the internal. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess and get her thoughts on empowerment.
So thanks, Jeff. It sounds like that repeated theme that we're hearing today is that drive, that hunger, that dissatisfaction with things as they are, and the self-motivation to move forward. So if we spot this in people, this is something to nurture and nourish and offer the skills, offer to coach, edify, build people up. I'd like to say hi to Christy Jean, watching from South Dakota, and Denise from Pennsylvania. And Lucy Moore says, empower yourself as well. So I'm just going to speak about that in a minute too. In fact, we have to do that first, don't we? And say hi to Judy and Jeff and Vicki and Joyce and Thomas and Tim and Nancy, who's going to watch this and take notes. She's going to watch the replay. And James and Jesse and Tina and Laura. Now, Tina, I've been seeing you in here complimenting people a lot. And thank you for that. Thank you for edifying the people around you. And Tina says she's bringing 10 people tonight, and I'm guessing that's to a meeting. So good for you. I can see why you are, why people love you. So good for you. So some 3 barriers that John Maxwell mentions to empowering other people. What can get in our way of empowering other people? A fear of being replaced, which is our own insecurity, just like the Henry Ford story. And resisting change, just feeling more comfortable. Things are the way they are, right? We want to stay in our little comfort zone, in our own little box. So let us be comfortable getting out of our comfort zone. Let us find a way to be comfortable getting outside of our previous comfortableness and keep stretching ourselves and embracing change, because it's always for the good, believe it or not. Even if it feels uncomfortable and new and all that and scary, it always does. But ultimately, it's always for our best good. Every change is for our best good. And there's a gift in there somewhere. So the third reason, the first was fear of being replaced. Second is resisting change. And the third is lack of self-worth. So just like Lucy said, we must empower ourselves as well. How can you do that? I suggest you can write down, as a shrink of MLM, that you can write down your strengths, write down your talents, and ask other people, what are those? Because always, we're too close to ourselves to know, oh, well, isn't everybody like this? Isn't everybody generous or kind or whatever your strengths and qualities and talents are? So ask other people so that you can begin to know yourself and value yourself and get that self-security that you can bring up other leaders around you. 3 tips. Assess your self-worth and security, and find ways to add value. Find ways to increase that. Like Jeff said, do your personal growth work, do your personal development, and practice these things. Practice the qualities that you want to add to yourself. And second, grow your belief in other people to use their gifts and opportunities. And third, to give power to set up the best people for success. So you notice we started with number 1 is develop your own self-worth, just like Lucy said. That has to come first. Questions? Who has questions for us? Please leave them in the comments. Also a takeaway that you can, your favorite thing you got from today, or even one that you can commit to putting into practice for your business this week. Insights, your wisdom, When have you empowered other people? When have you felt empowered? And what did the person say to you? You know, you can do it. Here, take over this responsibility. Stretch a little bit. You know, tell your story at a meeting, as a present, and tell your testimonial, tell your story when you haven't spoken before to people. So notice when you've been empowered, when you have empowered, and how good that felt afterward when you did stretch yourself either way to empower other people or yourself even. So Jeff.
So one of the things you have to do, outside of, learning the skill and having the desire, is you have to be able to understand personalities and what drives people. So to be able to empower people, you have to understand what is their desire in life in general, and what does their personality kind of look for. The D-type personality looks for control. The I-type looks to kind of be the person in the show and, attract the people and have the fun. The C-type looks for correct answers and wants to be right. The S-type looks for, security and looks for the ability to affect people and help people. So you have to be able to understand all of that while you're out trying to empower people. It's not just believing in people. I think you can do it. I think you can do it. I think you can do it. Although that's important. Sometimes that has to be repeated over and over again, but it's being able to understand the actual personalities of who you're dealing with and what's going to get them to basically be involved and take off. So that's kind of what I have for this particular lesson, the law of empowerment. Tomorrow we're going to go over the law of picture. And the law of picture was actually one of the ones that he re-edited from the first version to the current version. It's the same lesson, it's just under really a different name. It says it takes a leader to know a leader, to show a leader, and to grow a leader. So you have to be able to understand what you're seeing. And it's really sensory, it's awareness. Is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. It's just being able to be aware in what's in front of you and being able to see the full picture, where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going, so that way you can kind of make things work the way they need to. With that, that's all I have for today. So I'm going to turn this back over to Bess for any closing thoughts, any questions you guys have, and we'll wrap this up.
Okay, and thank you so much, everybody who is sharing. If you've got value today and you've shared it with others, or a group even, we thank you so much for that. And we do like your likes and loves and your comments. And thank you for being here. Thank you for doing your personal growth work with us a little bit every day here. Some of you are on here every day, and that's consistent. That's a sign of a good leader and a successful person. If you're not yet a member of the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show group, you can go there and request membership, and we can add you. And there you can get the replay, free book, and notifications and community discussion on leadership. So let's improve ourselves 1% today. All right? You're being a leader. Pick one thing today that you can improve that you heard today, because over a year, then you're improved 365%. So that's good. I want to say hi to Jacqueline too, because I know this is going to closed captions on YouTube. Every day, Jeff puts these on YouTube for us. And that includes closed captions for people that like that option. So thank you all for being here.
Okay, Christy actually asked, what would be a suggestion for a great personal development book? Bess, how would you prefer that?
Well, let's start with John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, which we're discussing here. That's a great place to start because it gives us a good look at ourselves as leaders. Yeah, let's start there. And I'll put some more suggestions in the comments too, some more of my favorite ones.
I think personal development is exactly what it says. It's personal. Some people need to understand what business they're in. Some people need to understand people. So what I do is I always have kind of a conversation with the person and kind of see where they're at, where they feel they're struggling, what their strengths are. And then I'm able to recommend something that kind of fits with what they're trying to figure out at that time. Certain people just need to see the big picture of what's going on. Certain people need, specific people skills. So that's how I usually figure it out, is just having a couple conversations. So, get with somebody who, either knows you or can, go over that and then make the recommendation for there. But anything by Maxwell really would help. But certain ones help quicker than others. They're easier to read. The 21 Laws for me was one of the hardest ones. to read, because like I thought that this material was actually specifically for what to do with people. I didn't understand it was something internally I needed to do with myself until I had a team to deal with, and then all of a sudden all these lessons popped out. So hope that helps out. Again,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Christy. If you could type in along what lines, because there's just so darn many. Along what lines are you seeking to develop? And I just want to say hi to Heidi and Alicia. Okay, Jeff, thanks.
So with that, guys, we're going to wrap this up. I appreciate everybody for jumping on. If you can like, share, and comment, we'd appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us. If you ever have any questions outside of this, you can find us at the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show on Facebook. And again, Bess said we put this on YouTube as well, simply so that way we can share it with more people. And also, the closed captions are there, and that helps out our deaf team or anybody who would need to get a hold of this information that can't do it through audio. So I appreciate it. You guys for jumping on. Thank you so much. Hi, Alicia.